Mick Lynch, good to talk to you this morning. Can I ask you what you thought of the budget, first of all? Was there anything in there for you?
No, there's no move from the government to solve these public sector pay disputes. There's certainly nothing that we can recognise for the railway, and it seems to be a budget for the rich. And there'll be a continuous transfer of wealth from working people because the tax thresholds for ordinary workers have not gone up. But for the wealthy, they can put up to £60,000 a year into their pension scheme, and they will have unlimited tax break on their lifetime's earnings. So it seems a peculiar step to take, where you're giving more money to the wealthy and taking money off the poor, and that's a transfer of wealth in our society, which we saw under Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, and Jeremy Hunt's going the same way, it seems.
Let's move on to what's actually happening today with you and the ongoing strikes. The Rail Delivery Group says that the RMT's been offered 9% over 2 years and 13% specifically to the lowest paid workers. Is that true? And if so, why haven't you accepted it?
Well, we haven't accepted it because it's a really poor offer. It's rubbish, really. It's way below the rate of inflation.
2 years.
Our members haven't... well, I'll tell you what, if you let me answer, we haven't had a pay increase for 3 years. Our members, during that period, have been subject to an inflation rate on the retail price index of over 22%, and they've been offered 9% over 2 years, but they have to fund that themselves through cuts to their terms and conditions, changes to their working practices, reductions in pay rates across the industry, and, of course, the closure of every booking office in the country, and that's unacceptable to us. We should get new money on the table. We shouldn't have to accept all these changes to our conditions in an industry that is 24/7. We need proper agreed rules on rostering and staffing and accessibility for people who want to use our railway. And all these companies are interested in is maximising their profits. And what we need to understand is that since the pandemic, they have made over £420 million in profit, these train operating companies. They're currently running profits at over £118 million a year. They're paying their chief executives. The First Group chief executive had an increase last year of 275% in his remuneration. His finance officer had over 150% increase in remuneration. So they are literally fat cats getting rich on the back of our members' work and the extortionate fares that the public have to pay, while they're telling us we can't have a pay rise. That's unacceptable.
You say it's a rubbish offer, 9% over 2 years, 13% to the lowest paid. But according to the Guardian newspaper, a similar offer has been given to Network Rail, staff there, and that's been put to referendum, which we're expecting to get a result on next Monday. I mean, they clearly don't think it's that rubbish an offer if they're willing to put it to their workers. Shouldn't you put it to your workers anyway and see what your workers think of it, whether or not they think it's a rubbish offer?
Well, it's an increased offer. It's a better offer than the train operating companies have made. So, and the details are in that offer. There's an extra amount of money and there's backdating that's in that offer, and that's why it's been put to a referendum. Those negotiations have concluded at the moment. We went to our members, thousands of them, and did a mass consultation on the details of this offer, and the money issue wasn't the main priority. It's the conditions and the ripping up of our contracts of employment and the dilution of our terms and conditions that has caused this offer to be stuck. So they need to improve what they want to pay our members, and they can afford that because of the extortionate profits they're making from the fare payer and the taxpayer, and they could maintain our conditions through agreement in negotiations. They're unwilling to do that because they want to make those profits even bigger. And if you take all these companies, Abellio, Go Ahead and First Group and so on, they're nearly all subject to takeover bids from private equity companies because they see that if they drive down conditions in this industry, they can maximise profit. So there are overseas equity companies that want to take these companies over and drive up the corporate return for their dividend holders and shareholders. We don't find that acceptable. We want a balanced deal for our people that retains their conditions of employment and gets them a decent pay increase, and that's not on the table at the moment.
Do you think passengers care about that? Do you not think passengers just want to be able to get to work? Do you think they mind what the motivation is? You're saying that the motivation for what the companies are doing is all money. The companies will say that their motivation is to make the businesses run better. But as far as passengers are concerned, they don't care what the motivation is. They just want the trains to be running. And there are people who can't get to work today, can't get their kids to school today, because once again, you're on strike.
I'm here at Euston Station, and we've had the most appalling train service that any railway company has provided in history. And if you take Northern Rail and Transpennine Express, what these companies specialise in is failure. They've proven time and again that they are incapable of running the railway. So what the passengers want, I believe, is a decent, competent management system where they can expect a reliable and safe railway at a reasonable price. These train operating companies have succeeded in extracting profit, billions of pounds of profit since privatisation, and have totally degraded our railway system. They haven't invested a penny. All of the investment in the railway comes from the taxpayer. It goes straight into the hands of rolling stock leasing companies, and the people that lose out are the staff and the passengers. So what we need to do is get rid of these middlemen who they specialise in collecting dividends and fares off the taxpayer, and get a decent system of railway operation, which is a square deal for the passengers, the staff and the taxpayer as well. And what we need to do is change the system, because all they're interested in is farming revenue and paying it out in dividends to their people. And that's what the passengers should get as a contract from this government, rather than the exploitation they're currently getting.
But passengers just want to get to work, to just go about their daily lives. And you say that customers want a reliable railway, and I absolutely agree with you.
If you speak to everybody in the north of England at the minute, and anyone who wants to use West Coast railways, they can't rely on getting to work, even when we're not on strike. There's more disruption when we're not on strike than when we are, in some cases. It's an appalling system, and the people that are running our railway at the moment have proven themselves completely incompetent. So what we need to do is get a settlement to this dispute, and then get on with reforming and restructuring our railway in the interest of the public, in the interest of the passenger, in the interest of our economy and our environment. That's what we need to do. That's the task in front of us. And that would start with resolving this dispute with a decent offer to our members that we could put to a referendum.
But you see, there are others who will say that actually, because of the number of strike days, they are now considering different ways of working, and ways that have worked around since COVID. People are much happier now working from home, absolutely, for a lot of the time. And some would argue that you're actually striking your own way out of a job, because you're going to contribute to the railways becoming less popular, less reliable. People are going to stop relying on the railways.
Well, I don't think that's true. That's a government line that you're punting out on their behalf. That's the sort of stuff they come out with.
Excuse me, you don't know. Excuse me, I'm talking to you about conversations I've had. Please, I'm not going to have you stand there and accuse me of being a government mouthpiece. I'm a human being, I'm a middle-aged woman, and I'm a journalist. And I'm talking to you about conversations I've had with people I know. This has got nothing to do with the government.
It's exactly the phraseology that I hear across the table from government ministers, almost verbatim. So there you go. Maybe you're just very in tune with what they say. So what we've got is a return to the railway. OK, well, fine. Maybe they're in tune with the government as well. So we've got a return to railways. We've got a return to profit-making by these companies. And we've got a return to fare hikes. So what we need to do is change the system. We need to get a railway that's reliable so that people can use it, so they can get back into our towns and cities, revive the economy for the hospitality industry and all the other people that rely on the railways and public transport. But what we're seeing now is a government that's determined to drive down public transport usage, whether that's on the buses or the railway. Fares are being hiked, services are becoming more and more unreliable, and the problem is that there is not a coherent railway system in our country. It is completely fractured and broken, and we need to revise that and get a decent system that's in all our interests.